Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. I'm going to talk about tabletop gaming. I'm going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm going to talk about a YouTuber calling out Gary Gygax and apparently Tolkien as being racist and sexist. What year is it? It's 2025 and quote unquote this shit again. This has been going on for a while, right? A lot of the new fans, the NU fans of Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop in the last, I'd say decade, 10 to 15 years, have decided it's very fashionable to call the creators of the thing that they play sexist and racist and homophobic and all of that, including some of the people working at the company that is now the rights holder of Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, Wizards of the Coast, some of their people have disparaged the creators of Dungeons and Dragons. They want to distance themselves from its messy origins, which are actually not that messy. It's just a bunch of guys in the Midwest playing tabletop games. D&D grew out of chainmail. It's a whole, it's a whole thing. There's a whole history on it. We're going to talk about Robert J. Kuntz, who has been on the channel before. We've had him on the podcast, and his reaction to it. I think he's getting tired of this. He was there as a youngster, watching all of this go down, and it has to sting a little bit to have your friends and family disparaged like this over and over and over again, especially by the companies that own the IP, right? The thing that they made. And like, none of you would have your jobs, your livelihood, your YouTube channel if it wasn't for Gary Gygax. So just show a little respect, right? I mean, that's my opinion on it. We're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, go out to more.clownfishtv.com. That's more.clownfishtv.com. Check it out. We're going to be ramping up our content over there. I don't trust YouTube. I've got a very bad feeling about this. So we're actually going to start ramping up our extra content or other podcasts and stuff over there and see where it goes. Also bringing back our forums. We're going to keep them private this time. That was a huge mistake I think I made last time, was we let anybody in and we didn't do a lot of checking. So the forums will be private for those of you who back us at more.clownfishtv.com. We got some other things we're going to do going into 2026, but check it out. Now, this is coming to us from Fandom Pulse, which is also on Substack. They said, fancy news, YouTuber Daniel Green attacks Gary Gygax as racist and sexist, and lambast JJ Dynamite Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien's beliefs. Yes. This is very fashionable. This has been going on for, like I said, at least a decade now. Everything's problematic. This is where the whole notion of orcs being people and the drow having to be changed to having purple skin. They can't have black skin, coal black skin like they did originally, even though they were based on, I believe, Scandinavian folk tales. That wasn't meant to be indicative of African peoples or anything like that. It was, it was just a lot of the early D&D monsters, especially a lot of Tolkien's inspiration came from folklore. These are monsters and creatures that have been passed down orally for years, and they made their way into a lot of these things. And I can't with this. You're allowed to have your opinions, right? But if you are in this space and you're a tabletop gamer and you claim to love Dungeons and Dragons, throwing Gary Gygax under the bus repeatedly is not a good look. Like, a lot of these people in this space, they're younger. They weren't there. I was there. Not at the very beginning, but I started playing in the, early to mid 80s and really got into it about 89, 90. So I remember TSR, and Gary Gygax was absolutely legendary. Like, everybody knew his name. Some of the people literally working at Gen Con right now can't even pronounce his name. It was embarrassing. A couple of years ago, I watched a live stream. This is after the Ernie Gygax debacle. R.I.P. Ernie. I got to talk to him one time. That would be one of Gary's sons. Very nice guy, but he got embroiled into some controversy, as the Brits like to say, and I think they like to say it that way. I don't know. I just made that up. But yeah, so they were talking about him in this Gen Con forum, and it was a bunch of, Gen Z millennials, and they couldn't pronounce his name. They're calling him Gygax. I'm like, you bitches. He created this convention. He created this game that you have attached yourselves to like a parasite that you're siphoning off of his legacy, and you're going to sit there and disparage him and not even have the courtesy to pronounce his name right. I mean, that's where we're at with this thing. And again, I don't know if this guy's going, we're going to take a look at this article. I don't know if he's going that hard into the paint on Gary Gygax, but I'm getting really tired of hearing about it. I mean, Gary had some very strong opinions. He was not a perfect person. None of us are, but, just show a little respect, right? A little respect. Fantasy news, YouTuber Daniel Green stepped into more controversy. More controversy. Is this guy known for controversy? More controversy in his latest video, attacking Tolkien's beliefs and calling Dungeons and Dragons creator Gary Gygax racist and sexist. The hallmark of SJW, this is their words, not mine. So the hallmark of SJWs, that is a term I've not heard in a long time, in pop culture is the incessant need to throw past greats under the bus. Yes, to act like somehow modern culture is somehow superior or has better values than those of 150 or even 10 years ago. While our culture objectively produced great works under these older value systems, and modern culture seems like a skin suit in comparison, it never dawns on the social justice activists that perhaps their values are the problem in the situation. Again, you don't have to agree with everything that, Gary Gygax believed. You don't, but just, some common courtesy, especially if you're going to be a fantasy YouTuber, if you're going to be a professional D&D player, or you're going to create supplements for Dungeons and Dragons, having very basic respect for the people that actually gave you your job. I mean, let's be honest. It'd be kind of a nice thing. It would be. Just be like, you know what? I don't agree with them, but that's okay. That's fine. So Green is a YouTuber who got big by covering culture through a Game of Thrones and the Wheel of Time more than anything else. He has 575,000 YouTube subscribers thanks to his constant showing for mainstream media. I cannot vouch for that. I'm vaguely familiar with him, but he's not someone I follow, right? I just know the drill. I know that there's so many of these tabletop YouTubers and podcasters and journalists that really feel the need to run Gygax through the mud at every opportunity, and it's disgusting. It really is, right? Even though he was embroiled in scandal himself. Oh, see, I didn't know any of this. So this is just I'm just saying, this is what they're saying. I don't know anything about this. Apparently he cheated on his wife. Okay. I'm not even gonna go there. Feels the need to moralize about greats like Gygax. Okay, what did he say? In the recent video, he began by couching a topic as defending Hasbro from Elon Musk, who he says has been acting as a snippy voice against woke Dungeons and Dragons activism that's pervaded through recent editions. We've covered this topic extensively on Fandom Pulse. They have. And D&D through additional releases has done terrible things, such as attack the founder, Gary Gygax. That is actually true. And it was very disgusting, I thought, to have, I forget who it was. Was it Jason Tondo? I don't remember. Anyway, one of the big wigs at WotC felt the need to call out or call attention to D&D being for or created by a bunch of white dudes from the Midwest. A bunch of bumpkins. Well, it's like you're benefiting from that, aren't you? Then, you know what I'm saying? And this is the thing that just keeps on going on and on. I mean, this is a very typical Reddit thread on D&D. Oh, it's Ben Riggs. Okay, there we go. That explains it. Ben Riggs, who is a D&D historian, I guess. I'm using air quotes here. But just talking about how problematic Gygax is. The fact that the TTRPG fan base is no longer solely middle-aged Midwestern cis men of Middle European descent, the fact that non-binary blurs and indigenous trans women and fat Polish American geeks, people from every bed of the human vegetable garden, find meaning in a game created by two white guys from the Midwest, is proof that they were geniuses. Yeah. So as a community, how do we deal with the ugly prejudices of our hobby's co-creator who also baked them into the game? We could pretend there's no problem and say that anyone who mentions a problem is a liar. Oh my God. Okay. So yeah, just that is Ben Riggs. Okay. This is Daniel Green. But this is a very common thing right now because they're realizing like, oh, hey, D&D maybe isn't as woke and progressive as we'd like in current year. Let's change it all. Let's anyway, this is coming from the video here. He says, in the initial printings and runs of Dungeons and Dragons, yeah, there were some issues with sexism and racial influences. He then talks about how another media shill from the Atlantic attacked Musk and D&D, praising the article for its modern social justice more, as Green calls it ridiculous to deny that Gary Gygax was racist. He then went into Tolkien, saying he also had some beliefs that don't stand the test of time. Green repeals the claim multiple times during the video, but also never elaborates on what those beliefs were. Well, you're supposed to believe that because it's on Reddit all the time. It's coming from Gen Con. It's coming from within the walls of WotC that Gygax was a racist and misogynist. And a lot of the Gygax stuff, if I remember correctly, it was because early on he had some rules for men and women when it came to strength, that men were stronger than women. Oh my God. Imagine that they're physically stronger than women. And this, like if you're playing a fighter, would have some effect on it, as I recall. And this would have been back in the 70s, early 80s, and people lost their shit. Like, wait, what? Like Red Sonja's not as buff as Conan and is incapable of having as much muscle mass as Conan without some sort of augmentation? That is heresy. How dare you imply that men and women are biologically different for the most part, right? So he's basically pissed off about Elon Musk. Is Musk still interested in buying D&D? I thought he was just kind of playing around with it. Actually, if Musk was interested in buying Hasbro, I'm telling you, he'd be interested in buying Hasbro because he wants Optimus. He wants the Optimus trademark is probably what it's about. Because, he named his AI robot guy in the suit, whatever it is, Optimus, like Optimus Prime, which I'm sure Hasbro just loves. I'm sure they're thrilled with that. And, he probably would want to buy Hasbro just so he could turn D&D into an AI online game. And also, so it wouldn't be any better than Hasbro, to be honest. And also, so he could own, without question, that the Optimus Prime name to use for his robots. That would be my guess. Many of Green's contemporaries do try to cancel Gygax and Tolkien on a regular basis. These are the people Green wants to appeal to in making commentary like this and being wishy-washy that he calls them, in essence, bad for their beliefs, but says their creations are still valid, doesn't fit with the ethos of why he even attacks them to begin with. So here's what's so weird about that. And I mean, his comments aren't as bad as some of the ones I've seen. A lot of the early D&D creators were actually Christians. They were Christians or I believe Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, whatever. So, they had this whole satanic panic thing going on, and it was very weird to see that because D&D was always about fighting demons and fighting monsters and fighting bad guys, and they were like, "Oh my God, it's satanic, guys!" So that was the thing for a while, and because of it, so now we have it coming from the other direction, right? These guys were problematic because they were more conservative or conservative leaning. And it's just a very weird thing. I mean, look, it's a corporation, right? And they want to wipe their hands of the creators of the thing. This is just like every other, Disney, same thing. They like Walt Disney as a mascot, like Colonel Sanders, but they don't actually like Walt Disney, the man. Walt Disney, who hated communists, by the way. He did, and he was helping McCarthy. He didn't like commies. He didn't like socialists. He didn't want them in his company, and now, look at where it's at right now, but, irony. But, they try to turn the founders, the creators, into caricatures of themselves. And Gygax, if he were like some cuddly old man, like he was in Futurama, rolling his dice, and that's all he was, and he didn't have actual human opinions, they'd be totally fine with that. They'd erect a statue for him. Somebody, I guess, kickstarted a statue for him in Wisconsin, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, Hasbro wouldn't, pay him that kind of tribute. There's no way they would. And it's the same with Disney. And it's the same with freaking Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's about the Colonel Sandersing of, these IP creators. And the grandson of Colonel Sanders gave away the. I did a video on that. The grandson of Colonel Sanders gave away the 11 herbs and spices because he was sickened by how KFC had exploited his grandfather's image, especially since his grandfather, I guess, was pretty conservative, and they turned him into like some lusty, shirtless anime character, and they keep making him the butt of jokes and everything else. And he's like, yeah, this is getting old. It really is. Anyway, this came from Robert J. Kuntz, who was there. Check out our interview we did with him. It was, I think, February, March of this year. Very, very intelligent guy. He has a deeper understanding of this stuff than anybody at Wizards of the Coast does, because, again, he was there. He saw it firsthand. This is what he said about Gary Gygax. Gary Gygax co-founded the International Federation of Wargaming. He co-founded Gen Con. He founded the Castle and Crusade Society. He brought fantasy wargaming, a long-time objective of his, into being through the publication of Chainmail. He co-founded TSR. He co-authored with Dave Arneson the first commercial RPG, Dungeons and Dragons. He went from rags to riches in doing so through hard work, determination, and grit. No one, then or now, can hold a candle to Gary's accomplishments. Yeah, nobody even in WotC can hold a candle to his accomplishments. And anyone that comes after Gygax and Arneson, the trail has already been blazed. I mean, you can do a better spin on it, and there have been a lot of tabletop systems, but everything kind of goes back to what they did. And again, to just bring up like, well, they're racist and they're sexist and they're homophobic and they're misogynist. It's like, you know what? You don't have to agree with them, but at least show a little respect, right? You don't have to throw them over the wheels of the bus every fucking time their name is invoked when you can't detangle these men from this hobby. That's what I'm saying, right? He created industries and helped maintain them as a writer, designer, editor, and president, but mostly from his love of games and the personal vision he had for them. People taking shots at him and his retinue, like myself, long after his passing, are simply cowardly rejects who create nothing and influence even less. All of them will pass as dust on the wind, while the legacy of Gygax and TSR will endure forever. D&D changed the world. And if not for the larger-than-life people involved in bringing that about, foremost Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, we'd today be much poorer creatively, financially, and friendship-wise. Crush the do-nothing naysayers by purchasing my memoir when it comes due. Yeah, there you go. In it, you will find the truth that extinguishes the hyenas of today who snap and snarl around a real king's grave. And that's exactly what happens all the time. Right? That's what happens all the time, is that somebody creates something great, somebody comes along and usurps it, and then they act like they're the ones that created it, and then they attack anyone who tries to correct the record, right? And again, this is, I don't think I was showing this earlier, Ben Riggs, who would, consider the D&D biographer, as this big, lengthy spiel on the D&D subreddit about how we need to, acknowledge the racism and sexism. I don't know. I mean, it's wild. And I think the truth is that so many gamers are moving on from D&D at this point that I don't think it's going to have the effect that it had before, right? Like, it used to be that D&D was it. And everybody's like, oh my God, guys, first it was D&D satanic and now it's racist. I think so many people moved on to other systems that it bounces right off. Like, they're like, oh, D&D. Oh yeah, it's kind of shit now, isn't it? What's with the gay Mexican orcs and the bakers and that's lame. I don't want to play that. I want swords and sorcery and fantasy and adventure, and you're not going to find it, I don't think, with Hasbro product anymore. That's just my opinion. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.